Well, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Ashley Early and welcome to today's webinar, How to Assess Nonprofit Financial Health Using GuideStar, Powerful Analysis for Your Clients. So before we begin, I'd like you to know that we are happy to take questions from all of you during the presentation. You're more than welcome to submit the questions at any time by using the Q&A box on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It might be on the top, actually, but it's on the right part of your screen. Our presenters, Tim Reifschneider and Peter Kramer, will be in conversation today, and hopefully they will answer a lot of your burning questions. If we're not able to get to all of these questions before our time is up, we will absolutely do our best to follow up with you directly via email as soon as possible. In addition, we have a little surprise for you, so stick around until the end. I promise it'll be worth your while. In the meantime, I'd love to introduce you to today's presenters. So first we have Tim Reifschneider, and he has been with us at GuideStar for 2 years, during which time he has taken oversight of our financial scan partnership and of our verification services for various United Ways around the country. Before GuideStar, Tim was in the banking industry, and he was also a publisher for a national newspaper. And then Peter Kramer is an Associate Director of Nonprofit Finance Funds, National Advisory Services Practice. That is a mouthful. As a senior member of NFF's consulting team, Peter also leads key initiatives such as the Financial Scan Tool, which is our online financial health analysis platform developed in partnership with GuideStar, and the Boston-based Catalyst Fund for Nonprofits. All right, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on the call today. As I mentioned, a recording will be available, and remember to stay tuned as we'll unveil your attendee reward at the end of the webinar. Without further ado, I go ahead and pass the ball over to you, Tim. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Ashley, and welcome everyone to today's presentation. I hope that over about the next half hour or so we can help take you through the Financial Scan product and show you how you can help your nonprofits customers and potential customers take a look at a snapshot of their financial health using FinScan. So our agenda today, we're going to introduce you in just a moment to Peter Kramer from the Nonprofit Finance Fund. We'll talk about where Financial Scan came from. Then we'll dive into a couple of case studies of actual nonprofits and take a look at their reports so that you can get a good view and a good idea as to their financial health based on the product itself. Then we'll show you some of the other neat things that Financial Scan can do, and then we'll finish up with some questions. So without further ado, I wanted to give you a little background. Nonprofit Finance Fund, their mission is to unlock the potential of organizations through tailoring their investments, giving them strategic advice, and helping them with accessible insights to their industry and their company. If we take their terrific background and advice and add that to the power of GuideStar, which for the last 20 years has been looking to revolutionize philanthropy and the nonprofit practice by providing information that advances transparency, enables users to make better decisions, and encourage charitable giving. We're simply the largest collection and database of nonprofit information for U.S. nonprofits in the world. So if you take the power of these two organizations and put them together, you come up with the product that is Financial Scan. So without further ado, let me bring in Peter Kramer, who, as Ashley mentioned, he heads up the Boston-based advisory team for the Nonprofit Finance Fund. He's their senior member of NFF's consulting team, and up there in the Boston office, he can also recommend a restaurant that has absolute killer lobster roll from personal experience. I guarantee if you're in the Boston area, please get in touch with Peter. He can deliver the address of the restaurant that's right by their office and get you some really good lobster. Anyway, welcome, Peter, and thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Tim. Thanks, everybody, for letting me join on this webinar.
So I'm going to turn the tables. Peter is usually the person who actually does this demonstration, and we thought today it might be better to, or just different for me to sort of pick his brain and go through the financial scan product and talk to him a little bit more and draw out some of the great insights that the reports can bring to you and to your clients. So let me, before we dive into the case studies, I just wanted to ask Peter a couple of questions. Now, how long have you been with NFF, Peter?
I've been with NFF for just over 6 years now. So been here in the Boston office for that whole period of time and have worn a few different hats, but 6.5 years is the short answer.
Okay. Were you around for the inception, sort of the creation of Financial Scan?
I was, yes. So it got started many years ago in terms of the idea, and I was a part of the small team that saw it through from the earliest stages of design and development, and now to managing our partnership together.
So was this something that Nonprofit Finance Fund came to GuideStar with the concept of, or was it a collaboration from the beginning? Help me understand where it came from.
That's a great question, and I don't know that there's probably some mix of lore and fact in the response that I'll give, but Nonprofit Finance Fund's founder, Clara Miller, was at a time a member of GuideStar's board, and there was this idea of, NFF has this great expertise in nonprofit finance, being an underwriter, making loans to nonprofits, having an advisory practice, and GuideStar has this unmatched access to data. So wouldn't it be cool if we could figure out a way to work together and bring, as you put it earlier, our two strengths together to create something? And that is where the idea came from, and it kind of set a small team of GuideStar folks and NFFers on a path to see what we could come up with, and that led to then what became known as Financial Scan.
How long was that process, sort of from concept to the point where we finally launched?
It was about a year.
Oh, okay.
And maybe a little more than that too, just in terms of the earliest conversations, but roughly a year of putting together the specifications, thinking about what issues we were trying to solve for. I think one of the key things was just helping nonprofit leaders, helping funders, helping advisors make some sense of the plethora of information that's available on GuideStar, and kind of trying to put a filter on that could help folks to see some of the most important financial metrics through which they could look and get a sense of financial health, and therefore use it for decision making, really. So that was kind of what we were looking to solve for, and over that year-plus period, we engaged focus groups of nonprofits, of funders, of advisors to help us come up with what we could do to address this question of helping people access information in a way that could allow them to make decisions about their financial health.
How long has it been out?
It's been out for just over 3 years. We launched Financial Scan in April of 2012.
And do you remember who the first customer was?
Not by name, but I know that it was a foundation, and
okay.
They were actually a part of our focus group effort early on. And I thought it was a pretty nice endorsement that our first customer was someone who had been with us and seen some of the kinks get worked out, and really then saw the value and ended up buying the service.
Cool. So is that who you were originally focused on building it for? Was it foundations primarily or nonprofits primarily? What was the thought process back 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think the thought process was to target nonprofit leaders and also foundations, program officers and grants managers. Those were probably, from my perspective, were the initial two primary targets,
right,
with an understanding that others generally could benefit from the information too, donors or government officials or folks working with nonprofits. But our primary targets were, I think, on the foundation and the nonprofit leadership side.
Okay. And have there been further releases since the first one?
Yes. So we did a 2.0, Financial Scan 2.0 launch in December of 2013.
Okay.
And that had a couple of new features. We added an Excel download feature, so you could get the raw data itself and customize it should you so choose. And we added a different way to do peer comparisons, which we'll probably look at a little bit later on.
Yep.
The other thing we did was make the one of the ways of accessing the report the Nonprofit Express Pass, which is the ability to generate a single report. We extended the period of time by which a user could generate that report, just to make it a little more user-friendly.
Fantastic. Okay, so without any further ado, why don't we take a dive into an actual report. This is for a nonprofit where things I don't think went very right, and although we're not going to share exactly who it is, this is an actual report from an actual nonprofit, and what we're looking at right now is the actual full report. I'm going to pull into this so that we can actually dive into the specific fields that I would love to have Peter kind of take us through to show you how simple this can be in terms of explaining this in-depth financial information to someone with perhaps not a non-financial background. So Peter, if you wouldn't mind sort of take us through what happened or what seems to have happened in terms of this organization and where perhaps they might have gone wrong.
My pleasure. One thing I'll say too before I do that is that on your prior question, or one of your prior questions, Tim, about who we designed the tool for, I think one of the things that we've seen over the last 3 years also, and acknowledging that this call in particular is focused on professional services folks, and that's been something actually that I think surprised us a little bit, at least me. I think at Nonprofit Finance Fund, we ourselves are a consultant and advisor to organizations, and we're originally thinking mostly about the funder audience and the nonprofit audience, but saw that there was a fair bit of demand also from groups that are, insurance agencies, from CPA firms, from strategic planning consultants, others who are working with nonprofit leaders in some way that intersects with their financial health. And so that has been a group that has been very interested also, and hopefully today we can show you a few ways in which that might serve the folks on this call as well.
I completely agree with you, and I guess one of the pleasant surprises in creating something is sometimes you find, or your users find a use for it that you didn't imagine when you were putting it together.
Absolutely. And in fact, some of our heaviest users, the folks who have a subscription, who use it the most, are in fact some of those professional services groups. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to mention that, but in terms of of course. In terms of the numbers that we're looking at here for this organization, and at first glance, and especially when it's pulled up full screen like this, it looks like a lot, right? And this is the financial health dashboard, which shows up to 5 years of an organization's data, as you can see here. It pulls the most recently available data from GuideStar. In this case, 2014 data was not yet available for this organization.
Got it.
But as you can see, this is an organization that has some real financial concerns. So looking at this set of data quickly can help folks get a sense of what's the scope of this organization in terms of its finances, what are some of the characteristics that it has, what might be some signs of health or some red flags. And so I'll just kind of start at the top and move down relatively quickly, but point out some of the most important factors. We've got expenses to give that sense of size of the organization, and then also the growth rates that tell us, are they expanding, contracting, are operations relatively steady? Revenue sources we show as a percentage, so you can get a sense of the composition of revenue sources. And the Form 990 doesn't show us restricted versus unrestricted revenue sources. So we've included the total number here because we're not able to show that differentiation of unrestricted versus restricted in terms of revenue. However, we've gotten around that on the profitability metric. So you might think that we would just take revenue less expenses, and that would be whether the organization had a surplus or deficit. However, at NFF, we have a very strong belief that it's most important to look at an organization's unrestricted performance. So that designation of unrestricted dollars shows what they actually had available in a given year to use. So therefore, we look at profitability in terms of unrestricted net assets and the change that's happening in unrestricted net assets on the balance sheet.
Yep, okay.
Right there, exactly. So we take the end of year less the beginning of the year of unrestricted net asset balance, and then we can see that unrestricted performance that the organization has realized. And as you can see for this organization,
there's a lot of red.
In the red. Yeah, so it tells me one thing, which is that their business model is not working for them. They're not able to bring in unrestricted revenue that reliably covers expenses. So this would be a red flag, of course. So we like to see consistent surpluses, and we like to see them of a size that gives the organization a little bit of room. So they're able to save for the future so they can withstand uncertainty or take advantage of new opportunities. So that's why we show them also as a percent of expenses when we're looking at the size of that change in unrestricted net assets.
Right.
So these were, some of the losses here were modest and some of them were much bigger. But the point is the deficits were growing over the period. So that would certainly be something that at a glance we can look and see there might be an issue here that we would need to talk to nonprofit leadership about how they're addressing this.
Got it.
Hey, Peter?
Yeah.
Peter, I have a question. This just keeps coming up. We do have on the call some subscribers to Financial Scan, and sometimes there are gaps in the years that we see. Why don't we just get these last 5 years? Is that a good question for right now?
Oh, sure. That's a great question. Thanks, Ashley. So in this case, we're missing 2011, right? And you might see some gaps in the years when an organization either doesn't file the 990 or there might be some sort of technical glitch with it. A very common one, which I don't think is the case for this particular organization, though, is that smaller organizations are able to file the Form 990 EZ, which is for organizations that have budgets of less than $250,000 and some smaller amount of assets. They can file that abbreviated tax return, the 990 EZ. It doesn't have enough data for us to create a very robust analysis, so therefore Financial Scan does not include EZ data. So from those small organizations that are filing the Form 990 EZ, it's not going to be available in Financial Scan. But some organizations kind of teeter on that brink of filing a 990 regular form in some years and EZ in others, and therefore you might see some gaps in the data if that happens to be the case. I don't know specifically why 2011 is missing, but Financial Scan automatically pulls the most recent available 5 years and filters that into the dashboard that you see here.
Got it. So also, if you've got a newer nonprofit who's only filed for the last 2 or 3 years, that would also abbreviate what would be available as well, correct, Peter?
Exactly right.
Got it.
Exactly right.
Okay.
So a couple of the other things that we can see from looking at the dashboard here, we just talked about the income statement side. We see that the business model is not working for them because they have what looks like a structural deficit where they're not able to cover their costs. Then looking at the balance sheet, we've got some key indicators here that tell us a little bit more about what might be going on. For example, in 2012, we can see that their gross land, buildings, and equipment, that's their fixed assets, increased dramatically by about $2 million.
Yes.
So they invested in some sort of fixed asset. They bought a building or they made a bunch of capital improvements, and that could be a good thing. It also happens to look like they may have financed part of that acquisition through debt, because we see their liabilities as a percent of assets going up from 7% to 32%.
In a single year, yeah.
Exactly. So they took on more debt. Their assets became more fixed and therefore less liquid, not as easy to convert that and use it readily. And we also see that they have a lot of temporarily restricted net assets. So a lot of what they have is actually restricted for future use. They can't use it in the given year. So it's not flexible for them.
Got it.
Those things combined could be adding up to why we're seeing this negative unrestricted net assets number. That negative unrestricted net assets number tells us that on an unrestricted basis, this organization owed more than it owned. So you can think about it in terms of net worth, right? That's the equivalent in nonprofit finance parlance of unrestricted net assets.
Okay.
So that's, of course, a fragile position to be in terms of financial health. So it just gives us a little bit more insight into what the resources they had available, and the fact that these deficits could have been eating away at their net assets, their net worth. And we can see that more specifically at the bottom here in terms of the liquidity metrics. We see they have cash, right? They've got months of cash of 15 to 5 or so months of cash and investments, but a lot of that is actually temporarily restricted, as we see above, so they can't really use it. So the more accurate measure of what is liquid and available for them to use is the bottom metric, where we look at months of estimated unrestricted liquid net assets. And again, it's free and flexible. Go ahead.
It seems to have gone from a positive number over the course of this 5 years to a very negative one.
Exactly. And so we could have seen actually very early on, too, that was a downward trend in terms of their liquidity. And it could potentially give some data that points us to say, hey, liquidity is something we should address, and what's our plan for doing that? You know, as advisors, we could come in and have some conversations about that. So again, just some pieces of information that we've filtered into this report that you can see that give directional insight into financial health.
Okay. So should we go over to a happier story?
Sure.
Here? And this particular one, I think, because based on this report, this is the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Colorado. Happy to share the fact that they seem to be doing things right from a financial perspective.
Yeah, it's a case where there's a different story here, right? We see a couple of deficits down in the profitability section. However, they've got sizable surpluses as well. I think it's not every organization is going to achieve surpluses in every year necessarily, but in this case, they're able to raise more unrestricted revenue than they're spending, and therefore they're bolstering their ability to withstand risks and take advantage of new opportunities. They've got some cushion so they can innovate and do more. So they've got these surpluses that are helping them out. You can see the proportion. They're larger. 2010, they had a deficit there, but they've kind of recovered from that.
Turned it around.
That's right. They do have a lot of their revenue coming solely from grants and contributions, and that might be fine. It seems to be working for them because they do have that more reliable business model where they're covering costs.
Right.
They've also grown over the period pretty substantially. Up in expenses, we can see that they've gone from $2.6 million to 8.3 million. That's a lot of growth, and they've been able to manage that in a way that still allows them to build some balance sheet health. And we can see that down here in the balance sheet section where we see cash growing. We see that they've got plenty of unrestricted net assets. It appears that none of their net assets are temporarily restricted or permanently restricted, so those tend to be available and ready for them to use. So it's a different picture looking here, but again, you can see kind of those same indicators of crisis or of financial challenge can also be indicators on the flip side of a positive story. And then we can have more of a conversation with clients about what contributed to your success and what do you want to do next?
Right,
What else do you need in order to achieve, the next $2 million worth of growth, or the ability to continue to serve your constituents in new ways?
Right. Be able to use that money towards the good, which is what really these, nonprofit is all about, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so you can pull up this dashboard and quickly assess the financial trend of an organization over 5 years. But what else can Financial Scan do? Well, in addition to downloading what we just saw either into a PDF file or an Excel file, which allows you, Peter, if I'm not wrong, to incorporate into another file that you might have prepared for your client, or to highlight the areas that you've decided in this particular meeting to go into and show to a particular client what they want to be looking at, over the next period of time to either change the direction or as we were talking about, continue to grow. In addition to the ability to look at a single organization, Financial Scan allows you to select peers and go dive back into the GuideStar database and pull out organizations that are similar in terms of the type of work that they do, their location either in the state or a metropolitan area, the type of industry that they are serving, or revenue, expensive, or assets. So you can plug in those numbers based on the organization that is your focus, and then you have the ability to receive a list of organizations that GuideStar feels are a good match to this particular organization. So you then go through that list and choose up to 5 organizations that match the criteria that you want to compare your focused organization to from a financial standpoint. So once you have put together, and in this particular case, I just chose 2 organizations that were a match in terms of location to the big brothers and big sisters of Southwest Colorado, and then we pull up another dashboard, if you will, and what we're looking at here, because of space considerations, is just the top half of that report, but we now have comparables to the focus organization to 2 other organizations, and we get to look again at their expenses, their revenue, their profitability, this over the most recent period available, but you get an idea not only of how they compare to other individual organizations, but we also have a peer average, which you can then look to see whether your organization or your client's organization compares to what the average of all of the organizations are from a financial strength point of view. So that's yet another aspect of what you can do with Financial Scan. Last but not least, and what you can then do is not only can you then download this particular document, this comparison document, as a PDF or an Excel file. But this button right here where you can actually generate a full financial scan report, which, what I'd like to do now is share with you what that report would actually look like. Here it is. So this is a comprehensive report that you can deliver to your client, which, and while we won't take the time now to focus down too much into the information that's located in it, but I just wanted to give you a flavor and a taste of what this looks like. This is the original dashboard for the individual organization, and then the report takes a lot of the data points from that dashboard and then graphically organizes them so that someone without a financial background can quickly assess and take a look at how they're doing over time. And this is a fairly comprehensive, I think there's about 18 pages or so of information that you can share. And then after page 18, there's a glossary and sort of an explanation for what each of these data points really can mean to your client. So without too much more ado, let's go back to our presentation here. And what I wanted to do at this point is kind of open things up. We have a few minutes now to hear questions that some of the folks out there might have about Financial Scan.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Peter. I do have a question for you, maybe for you, Tim. Can I see every nonprofit's data from GuideStar on Financial Scan?
Well, as Peter has mentioned a little bit before, that Financial Scan was really built for organizations that file a Form 990, not those organizations that file a 990EZ or a 990N. Off the top of your head, Peter, do you know how many organizations file the 990?
Not how many file total, but I actually can get that at my fingertips in just 1 second if you give me a moment, Tim.
I think of the arguably 1.2 to 1.4 million nonprofits that file some form of tax return, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere between 350, 400,000, so about a third of the total. So in answer to the question, there's anyone who files a 990, not anyone who files a 990EZ. Ashley?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thank you very much. That answered that. So I'm getting a lot of questions.
I can just interject on that.
Go right ahead.
Sure.
The latest number that I have seen is that there are 350,000 eligible organizations for Financial Scan. So more than 350,000 organizations who are eligible for a Financial Scan report. It's not only that they, it's absolutely true, those who file the regular Form 990, but also those that have at least 2 years of consecutive data. Because this is a trend report, we want to be able to show something meaningful. So that's another threshold that we need to have met. So it's 350,000 organizations who are eligible currently for a Financial Scan report.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, guys, so if I'm a registered user of GuideStar, do I automatically get Financial Scan?
Unfortunately, no. Financial Scan is an add-on product to the GuideStar experience. And again, as Peter had mentioned, there is an Express Pass that is an option for anyone who wants to purchase, is it 7 days of access to Financial Scan, and the cost there is $250. It can be purchased on the GuideStar website. Just put it into your cart and you can check it out there. There is also an annual license to Financial Scan, which will allow you to run an unlimited number of reports in the course of 12 months. The cost there is $2,500 per seat. And then there is a much larger enterprise license, which is works very well for organizations that have multiple locations throughout the country. And the cost there is dependent on how many folks who we would think are actually going to be using the product, but in the area of somewhere between $15,000 to $25,000 per year. What is a very nice feature of the enterprise license is the fact that you can then white label the Financial Scan report and use your own logo to go on top of it, which is always a nice calling card for someone who is looking to consult with an organization before they're a client, or nice to deliver to a client as part of the services that you provide to them.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, can you flip over to your next slide so that we can see your contact information as well as Peter's, because I'm sure that there will be additional questions surrounding that thereafter. Obviously, everyone sees a resources page right here, and I forgot about that one. If you want to briefly describe that and then move to your contact information slide.
This is simply where more information is available about Financial Scan, either on the GuideStar website or the Nonprofit Finance Fund website. And then this final slide is the contact information for both me and Peter. I encourage you to ask any questions. Just shoot me an email or Peter an email, and we're happy to engage and talk about Nonprofit Finance Fund, Financial Scan, or any topic having to do with nonprofits. More than happy to discuss that anytime.
Okay, Tim, so while everybody is jotting down your contact information, Jeff has a question actually for Peter. Peter, what are the drawbacks of basing the Financial Scan only on a 990? So not including, for example, the most recent audit and a more recent financial statement.
Jeff, that's a great question. So as many folks on the call know, the 990 is a standardized form that's the tax return that nonprofits file. So it has it has great benefits, and it does have some limitations. One of the things that can be limiting from an analysis perspective is that there's a delay when the organizations file with the IRS. The IRS processes the form, gets the form to GuideStar. My understanding is that once GuideStar has the 990, it's able to digitize the data, which makes it available in Financial Scan within 30 to 60 days. But there can be a lag on some of those earlier steps. So it's important for nonprofit leaders, advisors, folks who are making decisions looking at the data to also include current info, right? So we often hear from funders who are using Financial Scan in their due diligence process that they run a Financial Scan report. It gives them a sense of where to look in the latest audit, which then kind of helps bring them to a more current place, and then also the most recent budget. So we see a lot of people using it not as a standalone necessarily, although some folks do, but where people want to have the latest information as a part of their conversations and a part of their analysis, folks are supplementing with a current audit or a current budget to give that full picture of the trends that have brought the organization to the point that they are now.
So, Peter, in simple terms, Financial Scan offers basically notes similar to an audit.
Yes, so Tim was scrolling through the full report where you can see some of that narrative, and it explains what is in the graph and also some questions to consider or prompt discussion with your client. I'll say that the notes are not quote-unquote smart. The notes in an audit are customized and created specifically for the nonprofit in question. The notes in Financial Scan are more of boilerplate language that describes what NFF looks for in terms of financial health with that specific metric, those specific indicators that we're looking at in the graph. So it provides additional data and narrative. It is not tailored specifically to the graph or to the organization that you're looking at. it is tailored to the metrics that are in question in that graph.
Okay. Well, I'd like to go ahead and wrap up. We have a few more questions that did come in, but I want to be courteous of everyone's time today to get back to work, etc. Thank you for your wonderful positive comments, and thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. And as our special way of saying thank you for being with us, Peter, Tim, and I would like to grant you a trial access to Financial Scan, drum roll please, for Tuesday, September 1st. So all we ask for you to do is fill out, there's going to be a short survey that's going to manifest in a pop-up window after we conclude here in just a minute or so. And there will be just a few questions. You will be instructed to check a yes or no box if you are interested in taking advantage of the complimentary Financial Scan trial. Just a couple things, or actually just one thing, just make sure you're a registered user with GuideStar.org, and yes, everyone, it's free to register. And I personally, I'm Ashley, I will contact you directly to activate your trial thereafter. As I mentioned before, a recording and a slide share of today's webinar will be provided to you within the next few days. I thank everyone for tuning in. Peter or Tim, do you have any comments or anything else?
I just wanted to thank Peter for his insight and his comments, and for everyone in attending.
Tim, thank
Fantastic.
you. It was a lot of fun.
Sure. Anytime.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Tim. And to everybody on the call, thanks for joining in, and we'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day.